'Tis the season for all things pumpkin, even if it's only the spice. It's hard to find a table during the holidays without pumpkin pie. Years ago, I wanted a change for my Thanksgiving table. Still pumpkin, but not the same traditional pie. Lo and behold, I found it. A Gingersnap cookie crust with hazelnut spread swirled throughout a souffle of pumpkin filling. Now we're talking. I've made this tasty version for several Thanksgivings and love it. What I love and find unique about this Nutella Swirl Pumpkin Pie is the chocolate swirl edition with a heavy dairy pumpkin filling and Gingersnap cookie crust. Believe it or not, the Nutella is quite the complement to the spiced pumpkin. It doesn't overpower it at all. If you're looking for the traditional holiday flavors with a pleasant twist that your kids will love, give this one a try. Let's get into the recipe. For my Nutella Swirl Pumpkin Pie recipe, you'll need the Gingersnap Crust. Includes Gingersnap cookies, store-bought or homemade. I'm using homemade. Brown sugar, ginger, and butter. The pumpkin filling includes pumpkin, brown sugar, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, salt, heavy cream, sweetened condensed milk, evaporated milk, vanilla, eggs, and a hazelnut spread like Nutella. You'll notice that ginger is prominent in this recipe along with the dairy. If you don't have all of the spices, you can sub all of them for 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. Our first step is to make the crust, so go ahead and preheat the oven to 350 degrees. In a bowl of a food processor, you're going to add 8 ounces of ginger snaps, which is about 16 of my homemade version. To that, you're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of packed brown sugar and 1 teaspoon of ground ginger. This is a Gingersnap crust, so we want to make sure that that ginger is prominent, but it's still not too much. You want to run the machine until the ingredients are really crumbly. All right, look at that. Look how fine and crumbly those cookies turned out. Oh, I love using homemade cookies in this recipe. Ginger and molasses smells fantastic. All right, to that we're going to add 3 tablespoons of melted butter, which is 1.5 ounces. Now we're going to pulse 10 times. That's all you need to do. 1, 2, 3, 9, 10. It's still crumbly, but that's what it's supposed to look like. Let's take an ungreased pie plate. Mine's a 9.5 inches, but as long as you have between an 8 and a 10, that'll be fine. Pour out your crumble. So now we're just going to press this along this bottom and the sides and up to create the top crust. And we want a little crumbly looking top. We're not going to shape the top at all. So I like that little rough edge look. So in order to get it, you're just going to press, don't press the top, just press the sides and the bottom, and then just push up the top like you see me doing here. Now the butter is what's going to hold this together. Notice that the Gingersnap crust is pressed firmly in the bottom, but I left it really rough and open at the top edge to give it that rustic look and not too perfect. It's going to be really pretty when you add the pumpkin filling in it. I'm going to place my pie crust on a cookie sheet just so nothing falls out and into the bottom of the oven. We're going to place this in the oven for 12 minutes. That's all you need. Crust is done. It has been par-baked, blind baked if you will. Go ahead and decrease your oven to 325 degrees. We're just going to let it cool for at least 10 minutes before we add the filling. In the meantime, we're going to prepare the pumpkin filling. So in a medium saucepan, you need to add a can of pumpkin, which is 15 ounces. You could use fresh pumpkin here if you want to, that you've cooked yourself. Notice the pumpkin is pretty wet, so we're gonna have to reduce it down over the stove because we want that thick pumpkin, and the only liquid we really want is from the dairy. To this, we're gonna add a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar, so make sure you pack that in because it's easier to measure it when it's packed than if it's just fluffy sugar, right? To stir it together, turn the heat on medium, and we're going to cook the pumpkin and brown sugar for about 20 minutes until the mixture has reduced and the pumpkin is no longer very watery. And then stir it frequently, particularly in the last 5 to 10 minutes because it'll get pretty bubbly. And so we want to make sure that nothing burns while it thickens. My mixture is done. It actually only took me 15 minutes. This is how you know it's been reduced. more so than just looking at it, is if you take your spatula and you run it through the center of your mixture, notice that it holds its shape. There's not enough liquid for it to ooze down and make it come together very quickly. Notice that. That tells us it's reduced down quite a bit. There's not much liquid in it, and that's what we want because we want the liquid to be the dairy, not the water. Right, so turn it off, and we're gonna let it cool for a couple of moments. With our pumpkin mixture off the heat, we're gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. We're gonna add 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. If you've never bought whole nutmeg, I highly recommend it. It's great because it has such a clean flavor to it. It's just a nice natural aroma compared to the ground that you already buy. We're gonna add 1/8 of a teaspoon of cloves. We're gonna finish off with 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Then whisk all of this together and set it aside to cool slightly because we don't want our eggs that we add to them to scramble, so this needs to cool slightly. Oh, that aroma is fantastic. In a medium bowl, we're gonna add 2/3 of a cup of heavy whipping cream, 1/3 of a cup of evaporated milk, 1/2 of a cup of sweetened condensed milk. We're gonna add 2 whole eggs, and we're gonna add 1 egg yolk. So you'll have to separate this 3rd egg. Save the white for something else. And 1 yolk. Add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Break up your eggs and then just whisk it all together. You want to make sure that that sweetened condensed milk, as it's heavy and it's hanging out the bottom, that it gets all whisked into the other. Okay, once your pumpkin mixture has cooled a bit, go ahead and pour your dairy and egg into the pumpkin mixture, and then just whisk it well until it's all combined. Okay, notice how thin it is. It looks more like a souffle or a custard-like mixture. Pour the custard pumpkin mixture into your pie shell, and it's okay if it goes a little bit above the crust because once this cooks and we take it out of the oven, it's going to shrink a little bit. It's gonna sink, so it will be below the crust anyway. Heat up 1/2 cup of hazelnut spread. I just put in the microwave for 30 seconds. And then you just want to take 2 spoonfuls and then just swirl it around in your pie filling. Take a knife and then just swirl everything around. Carefully now place the pie in the oven and bake for at least 55 minutes. Just keep an eye on it starting at the 45-minute mark because all ovens are different. It's taken mine as much as an hour and almost 10 minutes. So just keep an eye on it. The center must be set. If it's too jiggly, it's not done. So just leave it in there and let it cook longer. So I'll see you in an hour or so. Hey, pie is out of the oven. Look how gorgeous it is with all the Nutella swirls on top and the pumpkin throughout. We need to let this cool completely before we cut into it. Once it's cooled, store the pie covered and in the refrigerator for a couple of days. For longer storage to serve at a later date for a holiday gathering, make this pie well in advance. That's what I normally do. I make it weeks in advance. I wrap it well and freeze it until the day before I want to serve it. I allow it to thaw in the refrigerator overnight, cut it, serve it. This is a great make-ahead pie for the holidays. Time to cut into the pie. First piece is always the hardest to get out. Left a little bit of the crust in there. Okay, looking inside the pie, you can see some of the Nutella is at the bottom there, but you can definitely see a lot of the pumpkin there, and the Nutella is just sort of swirled in at the top with some of it at the bottom. Okay, you definitely have plenty of the crust. It looks like a lot more pumpkin on this side. It smells really nice. Let's give it a taste. Well, Scott's joining us today for a taste. Hey, Scott.
Hey.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Well, you've been smelling all of these holiday spices all day. Are you ready for a taste?
Let's give it a go.
All right, go for it. What do you think?
Definitely tastes like a pumpkin pie with the Nutella swirl kind of adding to the pumpkin pie. It's not an overpowering taste. Crust is great. I really like the Gingersnap Crust. Very different taste for a pumpkin pie than what I'm used to.
Right. I mean, the pumpkin pies we've had in the past all had their traditional shortening or butter crust. So this one is definitely adds its own flavor and uniqueness to the pie, I think. It's good that you said the Nutella doesn't take away from the pumpkin, because Nutella can be sort of a strong flavor. And I think the pumpkin too is also strong, and you get those strong spices, but they all sort of work together.
Yeah, it's certainly a pumpkin pie as opposed to a Nutella pie.
Right, and then around the holidays, I think that's what most people want. It's going to be a pumpkin pie. But that little twist of Nutella and that Gingersnap Crust really does elevate, I think, a traditional pumpkin pie.
Yeah, it does. No calories in this?
No, none at all.
Okay, great.
Thanks for your help today. And if you're looking for a twist on an American classic, give this pie a try this holiday season. I've already been gifting my neighbors with these pies, and I think they're pretty happy. The addition of Nutella just might entice your kids to enjoy a slice. Thanks for watching, and many thanks for your support. Until next time, go do some holiday baking around the world.